Hey guys, welcome back to Quarantine Coffee and Jesus. If you are just tuning in with us this week, we have been going through some of the miracles that Jesus performed in the New Testament. We've been just kind of like digging into them and seeing why Jesus performed miracles, what he was trying to teach us through these, and what it showed about his character. So, the miracle that we're going to go through is about a woman that was healed from something that she has dealt with her whole entire life just by touching the clothes of Jesus. So, before we start reading through those verses, I'm going to kind of give a little background to the verses prior to this. So, at this time in Jesus' ministry, he had developed quite a following of people. So when Jesus did a lot of these miracles, and you'll read as we go through them for the next 2 weeks, but also as you read through them in the New Testament, after he does a lot of these miracles, he tells people not to say anything about what he just did. And he just didn't want these miracles and these miraculous things that he did to distract people from the real reason why he came. But if you can imagine, if you got healed from something you've dealt with your whole entire life, or just witnessed somebody get healed, like, you're going to tell somebody. You have to tell somebody. Like, that news travels quick. So at this time, Jesus always had a lot of crowds following him. So before these verses, Jesus is in a crowd, and a man came up to him begging him to come heal his daughter that is really sick and that is dying. So Jesus starts making this journey to this man's house to go heal his daughter. But on the way there, something happens in this crowd that makes Jesus stop on his way there. And so I'm going to start reading these verses, which is Luke 8, chapter 8, verses 43 through 48. And there was a woman who had discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all of her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anybody. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who is it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surrounding you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Somebody touched me, for I perceived that the power had gone from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she touched him, and how she had immediately been healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." So this woman has been bleeding for 12 years, and this bleeding is most likely menstrual bleeding. And I know that sounds really gross, but it's a real thing. It's real life. It happens. But back then, bleeding for women technically made them ceremonially unclean. And that whole term is something that at the end of these 2 weeks, Cole is going to kind of dive into of what that meant and what that meant in the Old Testament and in these days. But basically, whenever a woman had her time of the month, she was considered ceremonially unclean. For that whole entire time. So anything she touched or anybody she came in contact with also became unclean, considered unclean. And so she would have to wait after her cycle, wait another 7 days, and then give an animal offering to purify herself so that she could be considered clean and a part of normal social and religious relations. So it was this whole ordeal anytime a woman got her period. And this woman had been bleeding for 12 years. So for 12 years, she was considered unclean. So she couldn't even go out in public without making it clear to everybody around her that she was unclean and that she could not go near anybody or touch anybody. She basically should have just worn a sign on her that said unclean, don't come near me. She lived in that shame for 12 years. That completely changed her whole entire life. And then the last part of the first verse that I read through, it said she had spent all of her living on physicians and she could not be healed by anybody. So she tried absolutely everything she could to get healed of this, and nothing work. She tried to have a normal life, but nothing worked for her for 12 years. So she must have heard about this man named Jesus that was healing people. And she probably thought, like, why not? I have tried everything else. Like, I have nothing else left. I've heard about this man. I've heard rumors of what he does and who he is. And if he actually is who people are saying he is, like, of all people, he will be able to heal me. Like, he can do something for me. Like, if I could just touch him, like, I don't even have to make myself known to people. If I could just get close enough to him to touch him, and I would be healed. And then nobody would even know that I was there. So that's what she did. She risked everything and went into this crowd and found Jesus and got close enough to him to touch his garments. And remember, she wasn't allowed to go near anybody. She wasn't allowed to be in any social situation where she could possibly touch somebody. Like, that would make them unclean as well. So this was a huge risk for her to even go into this crowd of people. And then verse 44 said, immediately the bleeding stopped. And Jesus felt it. Even though he didn't see her or him actually touching her, like, he felt that power leaving him. And Jesus stopped in the middle of this crowd on his way to this man's house to heal his daughter and asked who touched him. And Peter, one of his disciples that is right next to him, probably goes like, Jesus, everybody's touching you. Like, you're in a crowd of people. There are multiple people touching you right now. But Jesus knew that this was different. Like, he knew that he just healed somebody, that he felt this power leave him and actually healed somebody. So at this time, the woman is hiding because she knows what she just did was, like, extremely risky. Like, remember, she wasn't even allowed to be there in the first place. So she must have been, like, freaking out in this crowd of people. Because in order to get to Jesus, she had to touch all these people. And in verse 47, it says, once she realized she couldn't hide anymore, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all these people why she touched him and how she had immediately been healed. So right in this moment, she's giving her testimony. And I'm just, like, picturing her, like, declaring, like, and telling these people everything that she has been going through for these past 12 years and how nothing's helped and how she heard about Jesus and she went into this crowd to just try to get healed, and how Jesus did it. Like, she was healed from just touching Jesus right here, right now, in that moment. And I'm just picturing, like, Jesus standing there smiling while she's declaring this to him and to this crowd of people. Like, I'm just imagining Jesus just, like, staring straight at this woman. And I like to even think, like, he got down on her level and is just, like, looking right into her eyes and said, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. And I think it's really important to note here that Jesus could have kept on walking. Like, this woman was already healed and he had somewhere to be. Remember, he was going to go heal this man's daughter that was dying. But he didn't. He stopped. He stopped right where he was in the middle of this huge crowd. Like, he could have just let her go unnoticed. I mean, she was hiding. She didn't want to be noticed in the first place. She just wanted to kind of go in, get healed, and then leave without anybody noticing her. Like, her life would have been changed no matter what, whether Jesus stopped or not, because she was healed. But Jesus wanted her to know that she was seen. Like, that she's not this burden to him, which she probably has felt like a burden for her whole entire life. Jesus has the power to heal, and he did it so many times throughout the New Testament. But the thing is that Jesus wanted these people, and he wants us to know as well, that he sees us, that we are seen by Jesus, that we are important. Like, he sees our needs, he sees our doubts, he sees our courage and our faith and our desires. He sees the things that we go through that people don't know that we go through, like the good and the messy parts of our life. Like, he cares about every single part of our lives. And I think, like, that's why he did these miracles, like, to show that he cares about us and he sees us. He sees and knows what's going on. and he has the power to heal us. And after these verses, it says, while Jesus was in the middle of saying that to that girl, someone came up to him and said, hey, don't worry about coming anymore. That man's daughter that he was on his way to go heal, like, she died. Jesus was too late to get to her. She's already dead. And in that moment, like, I'm just imagining, like, how that father that was right there with Jesus this whole entire time, like, how he must have felt. Like, he was probably so angry. I mean, Jesus stopped what he was doing on his way to go heal his daughter to heal somebody else. Like, his only daughter died because of that. Like, Jesus didn't get there in time. Like, what if he didn't stop? Maybe he could have made it there, and she wouldn't have been dead right now. But in verse 50, Jesus says, do not fear, only believe, and she will be made well. And you have to think, like, this father just witnessed what happened to this woman. Just from touching, like, from her faith, from her thinking, like, if I just touch Jesus's clothes, like, I will be healed. So he must have seen that. So he was probably like, okay, like, yeah, I believe, like, I have to believe. I have nothing else. Like, my daughter just died. Like, I have nothing else but to believe that you can heal her, even though you're not there right now. And if you keep reading, like, in which I encourage you to read the rest of chapter 8 about this man and his daughter, you'll see that that's what happened. She came back to life, even though Jesus was never even there. He still healed her. And I think, like, something to note about Jesus's miracles and his healings were that they were always physical. They were always these outward things that people dealt with. He didn't heal people, people's characters, or immediately change their hearts. Like, that stuff, that kind of change takes time. Like, that change takes having a relationship with God and trusting him with that stuff. And these gospels don't follow these people that Jesus healed. So we don't know what happened the next day or the years down the road. Like, we don't know what change that it caused in them, like, long down the road. But you have to imagine, like, getting healed from something that you have dealt with your whole entire life, or, like, your daughter being, like, raised back from the dead after she died. Like, there's no way that can't change you. Like, you are changed from that. And I feel like that's, like, a reason why Jesus did miracles as well, is to change that outward part of us, for us to be able to trust him and be like, okay, if he can change this outward part of me, he can change what's going on inside of my heart. Like, I can trust him to heal what's going on inside of me. And really, that's what matters to Jesus, is this inward change, what's going on in our hearts. Like, all of these people eventually died and got sick again. But you have to imagine that, like, because of this day, by their faith in Jesus, like, they're spending eternity with Jesus in heaven right now. And, like, that's why Jesus came here, was to give us this eternal life. Like, Jesus used these miracles to show people that he wanted them eternally. He just didn't want to just heal their needs that were going on, their physical needs that eventually, like, were going to go away anyways. Like, he cares about what goes on in their hearts. And, like, that woman that he healed, like, believed that Jesus was something special, something different. Like, she trusted him that he had this power to heal her, that she risked absolutely everything to get close to him. And he healed her of this 12-year battle that she was dealing with. Like, Jesus made her clean. He gave her life back. And, like, the same thing with this father who witnessed this woman's faith. Like, that probably gave him the faith to believe that Jesus could bring his daughter back to life without him even being there. But what about, like, these things in our lives that Jesus doesn't heal or take away? Like, these painful things that affect our everyday life, something that we have asked Jesus over and over again, like, Jesus, heal this, take this away from me. Like, what about that? Like, these people were healed instantly. Like, Jesus didn't even mean to heal that girl that touched his clothing, but yet she was still healed instantly. But, like, what about the things in our life. Like, is this miracle saying that Jesus doesn't heal these things in our life because we don't have enough faith? Like, I don't necessarily believe that, but like reading through these verses, it's kind of hard not to think that. Like, what about that cancer that won't go away, or someone's child who was born with this disease that's taking its life, or like these feelings or attractions that we have that we know that are wrong, but God won't take them away from us. Is it because we don't have enough faith? My older brother has struggled with like extreme depression and bipolar for like over 20 years. It's been about 20 years. And like, no matter what he's tried, no matter how many doctors he's gone to, places that he's gone to, medications that he's been on, nothing has helped. Nothing has changed what he has been going through for the past 20 years. Like, he literally can't even go out in public because of his depression is so like life altering. Like, why won't Jesus take that away? Like, we've prayed so like ever since I can remember for Jesus to take this away. Yet he still struggles with this to this day. And like going through all of that, like all I can keep going back to is like that verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. It's verse 8. It's that verse that Robin, Jim's wife, went through during the Easter service, about that thorn that is in Paul's flesh, how he begged him 3 times to take this away. And we don't know what that thorn is. We know it's not like a literal thorn, but it's something that Paul begged God to take away from him 3 times. And God's response to him every single time is, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness." And we have been studying Paul for like over a month, doing this Bible study. Like, that man had faith. Like, of all the people I've ever met or I've ever read about, like, that man had so much faith. But yet, like, Jesus didn't take that away from him. Like, Jesus used that as a reminder that no matter what our circumstances, like whether Jesus takes it away or not, like, he is enough, that he will get us through whatever we are going through. Like, his power works best when we are that weak. And I think like that's something that we just need to rely on and like keep trusting him with. Like, that's really all we can do in these situations. So like going through this and going through that last part, like, I guess that's a question that I want to ask you guys. Like, what's your thorn? Is there something in your life or in your loved one's life that God like won't take away, no matter how many times that you have begged him to do so? Like, do you truly believe that Jesus' power is enough for you, that Jesus is enough for you to get through this? And like bringing it back to this whole faith thing, like when it comes to these things in our lives, like what else do we have to hold on to? Like this woman, she had nothing else left. Like, she tried everything. She had nothing else left, but she believed that Jesus could heal her. Like, we have to have faith that either Jesus will take it away or that he's going to be enough to get us through, no matter how painful this is, even if it's for the rest of our lives. Like, we have to hold on to that hope, because sometimes that's like all we have. So that's those verses in that miracle. Again, I know I say this every single time, but like if you guys have anything you want to talk about, if this passage brings up anything in you that you want to talk about, like, we're here for you. We want to talk to you about this stuff. If you have any prayer requests, any way that we can support you, like, we're here for you. We want to talk to you. Thank you for listening to me. What time am I at? Sweet. Under 20 minutes. I'm trying to beat Juliana and Cole. And I just made it, so perfect. Okay. Yeah, let us know if you guys need anything, if you want to talk, but otherwise tune in tomorrow. Yeah, we'll see you later. Thanks, guys. Love you. Bye.